Could your pet be deficient in vital nutrients on a homemade diet? I see too often owners claiming it doesn't have to be that complicated. Just feed them chicken, rice, and veggies. Their wild cousins don't eat balanced meals every day. Are these statements true? Does balancing just overcomplicate things and not actually necessary for your pet to live a long and fulfilling life? In this video, I will be going over 7 essential nutrients that are often lacking in a home-prepared diet, whether it be raw or cooked, and what your pet may experience if deficient in these nutrients. These nutrient requirements are defined by the National Research Council and AAFCO. Number 1. Zinc. Zinc is a mineral that is commonly lacking in both a raw diet and a cooked diet. While it's found in many red meats, it often doesn't meet the recommended daily intake. Zinc is responsible for activating enzymes, skin and wound healing, immunity responses, and growth. A pet that's deficient in zinc will show stunted growth, alopecia, conjunctivitis, and poor wound healing. As far as over-supplementing, zinc is relatively non-toxic, but an excess of anything is never good. What can you do to meet your pet's zinc requirements? A whole food source that supplies a concentrated amount of zinc is oysters. These can be fed in a raw or cooked diet, as they do need to be cooked or steamed prior to feeding to eliminate the risk of Toxoplasma gondii infection. If you're unable to supply oysters, then zinc picolinate is also an option. Number 2. Manganese. Manganese is a mineral that is lacking in both a raw and cooked diet. Manganese aids in lipid and carbohydrate metabolism, bone development, and cell membrane integrity. A pet that's deficient in manganese will show impaired reproduction, fatty liver, bowing of the legs, and stunted growth. As far as oversupplementing, manganese is also relatively non-toxic. What can you do to meet your pet's manganese requirements? For the raw diet, providing green tripe or blue mussels. Just like oysters, mussels need to be cooked or steamed before feeding. If you're unable to supply these, chelated manganese is also an option. Number 3. Calcium. Calcium is a well-understood nutrient, but can be easily forgotten in many home-cooked diets, and even some raw diets if raw meaty bones aren't included. Calcium is an essential mineral that's function is to aid in bone and teeth development, blood clotting, muscle function, and nerve transmission. A pet that's deficient in calcium will show a decrease in growth, decreased bone mineralization, lameness, fractures, teeth loss, and even convulsions. If calcium is fed in excess, symptoms include kidney disease, lameness, and urinary crystals, just to name a few. What can you do to meet your pet's calcium requirements? If you're feeding a raw diet, providing edible raw meaty bones will meet their calcium requirement easily, as well as 2 other essential nutrients, phosphorus and magnesium. In a cooked diet, since you can't feed cooked bones, you need to provide it in a supplement form. Bone meal is ideal as it provides calcium, phosphorus, and magnesium. However, if these 2 nutrients happen to be met already, eggshell powder or calcium carbonate is also an option. Number 4. Vitamin A. Vitamin A is a fat-soluble vitamin that may be lacking in a raw and cooked diet. Vitamin A aids in vision, immune system function, reproduction, and is also responsible for making sure the heart, lungs, kidneys, and other organs work properly. A pet that's deficient in vitamin A will show poor growth, weakness, a poor coat, dryness of the eyes, and even loss of sight. Vitamin A is a fat-soluble vitamin, which means the vitamin dissolves in fat and gets stored in tissue. Because of this, toxicity can occur if fed in excess. Toxicity symptoms include nausea, peeling skin, weakness, tremors, and in cats, spinal problems and tooth loss. What can you do to meet your pet's vitamin A requirements? In a raw diet, vitamin A is easily met by providing liver as 5% of the diet. If you're feeding a ruminant animal's liver like cow, bison, or lamb, it should be 3% as these are very concentrated in vitamin A. Vitamin A does well with heat, but is easily oxidized, so there will be changes in the amount of vitamin A available when cooked. If you're unable to supply liver, cod liver oil is also an option. Number 5. Vitamin D. Vitamin D is a fat-soluble vitamin that is lacking in both a raw and cooked diet. Vitamin D aids in calcium and phosphorus homeostasis, bone mineralization, insulin synthesis, and immune function. Dogs, cats, and ferrets cannot absorb vitamin D from the sun like we can, so they need to get it through their food. A pet that's deficient in vitamin D will show weakening of the bones and osteoporosis. Since vitamin D is also a fat-soluble vitamin, toxicity can occur if fed in excess. Toxicity includes high calcium levels in the blood and soft tissue, lameness, and anorexia. What can you do to meet your pet's vitamin D requirements? The whole food sources that are high in vitamin D are Atlantic mackerel, Atlantic herring, sockeye salmon, and ruminant liver. While liver is a decent source, it often doesn't meet the daily requirement. Vitamin D is stable under heat, so feeding these fish works for both a raw and cooked diet. If you're unable to supply these fish, cod liver oil is also an option. Number 6, iodine. Iodine is a mineral that is lacking in both a raw and cooked diet. Iodine aids in healthy thyroid function. A pet that's deficient in iodine will show an enlargement of their thyroid glands, a rough coat, alopecia, lethargy, and even behavioral changes like sudden aggression. Iodine can be oversupplemented as well, with similar symptoms along with a decreased appetite and immunity. What can you do to meet your pet's iodine requirements? Fish, oysters, and large chicken eggs are a decent source of iodine, but don't usually meet the recommended daily intake. The whole food source with the highest concentration of iodine is kelp. Depending on the brand, some kelp may have a higher concentration of heavy metals, so always research the brand. When including fish and oysters to the diet, their iodine content still should be considered when providing kelp. If you're unable to supply kelp, potassium iodine drops are also an option. Number 7, vitamin E. Vitamin E is a fat-soluble vitamin that is lacking in both a raw and cooked diet. Vitamin E is a biological antioxidant and aids in membrane integrity. A pet that's deficient in vitamin E will show sterility in males, inflammation, dermatosis, immunodeficiency, and muscle disorders. Since vitamin E is also a fat-soluble vitamin, toxicity can occur if fed in excess, though the effects aren't as severe. The effects are usually behavioral changes and increased clotting of the blood. What can you do to meet your pet's vitamin E requirements? The whole food sources that are high in vitamin E are powdered or pureed wheatgrass, as well as soaked and pureed sunflower seeds or almonds. These can be supplied in a raw or cooked diet. However, these foods are not biologically appropriate for cats and ferrets, though mixing wheatgrass powder in their food wouldn't cause harm. If you're unable to supply these foods or you have a cat or ferret, natural vitamin E oil is also an option. So, can you get away with just feeding your pet chicken breast, rice, and veggies every day? As you can see, there are many nutrients that can be lacking or deficient in a simple homemade diet. And depending on the ingredients of the meal, it may not just be lacking these 7. While I'll always advocate for a diet made of biologically appropriate fresh foods, I will never advocate for a diet that consistently lacks essential nutrients. Even a balanced commercial pet food would be a healthier, more optimal choice. Do our pets' wild counterparts eat balanced meals that meet all of these essential nutrients daily? No, but they do eat multiple different prey animals like deer, moose, boar, rabbit, beaver, rodents, and birds. Each of these animals have their own nutritional profile, and thus they're able to balance nutrients over time. For adults, the diet doesn't need to be perfectly balanced every single day, but it's highly suggested to supply fresh foods that provide these recommended allowances of nutrients over the course of time. This isn't an intent to scare you or steer you away from feeding a homemade diet. Balance is the foundation, but it's okay if there's times when you can't. Life happens, and their bodies are prepared to handle situations where nutrients may be scarce. However, for puppies, kittens, and kits, their diet does need to be balanced daily for proper growth and development. As pet owners, it's our responsibility to provide a diet that will lead to a healthy and fulfilling life, so they don't just survive, they will thrive. If you're wondering what your pet's daily intake of these nutrients are, you first need to figure out your pet's caloric intake and then compare it to the NRC's recommended daily allowances. The numbers provided are per 1,000 kilocalories. If you want to learn more about finding your pet's caloric intake, check this video out.